We've been stagnated across each of our locations. So we're either in the S curve of growth, we're either just at the top and there's just no more that you can do, or we say, okay, how could we deliver a better sales and onboarding experience to the people that are coming into this thing so we can fill up the leaky holes in our bucket so that when we pour water into the top, we're able to convert more and less water out of the bucket. And then once we've got that figured out, now it's just like how much more can we pour into the top. So the very first sales call, they go through the goals. We talk about what you're looking for. We frame a lead gen. We talk about the offer, and it's like an offer so good you would be dumb to say no to. Download the app. We get you booked out in your first sessions, and your schedule's sort of set. Now then it would be over and done with, and then we get you in, and we fulfill on the program product. But what I'm going to do now is once we've closed that person, we've gotten their schedule built out. We're going to do like a short onboarding presentation over Google Meet with that person on the phone, hopefully, or they're at a computer, where we go over a lot of the key things that I'm hearing in these beta test feedback calls. So by doing like an extra, 5 to 10 minute context setting at the very top of this phone call after we've closed them, we're going to be able to address a lot of those key pieces. So when they come in the door, they've already taken out a lot of that confusion. If we can engineer and like structurally engineer better first impressions at each point and be tracking those things across the whole cycle of the prospect's journey, that's only going to help us with the outcome results that we want in terms of making more money and having more people join the business. But like, I'm going to test it immediately. So I'm on a beta test feedback call. I'm like, hey, can I just run this by you? Boom, where I'm screen sharing. I'm going through this presentation that I made 3 minutes ago that I didn't have perfect in my head, but I just wanted to get that initial feedback. And then it's like, okay, we're just going to test this for a week and see how my sales team likes it, see how the prospects like it, see what the feedback is. So I don't have to sit here and debate if it's this or if it's this. You can just frame it under like, let's get it live and let's test the thing and let's see what the market actually has to say and let's see what all the different stakeholders have to say. And that's going to be a faster path to like figuring out if this is a good thing to do or not do, rather than kind of like sitting and engineering stuff. So if you're out there building something and you're thinking about the different ways to do it, like get that minimum viable product going and then start to think about like, how can I test this faster? What am I trying to get feedback on? And instead of like overthinking it, just use action as your guide, because it might work for the prospect, but it sucks for the sales rep or vice versa. And with all those like multifaceted, more complex thing, when you just get action and you get everybody involved and rowing in the same direction, you're going to learn what is the best approach more quickly than sitting and thinking about it. Even if it doesn't work, we still learn all the lessons and the things that go into this, right? And those lessons that go into this will materialize in a new project down the road, or like when we open a new location, better framing up our onboarding experience, etc. There's a lot of like downstream other consequences that you gotta think through. Like, hey, if we change this, we got to make sure that there's not second and third order things that we're not messing up, because those things are already working for us. But also realizing that, look, everything's a trade-off. We're probably not going to be able to make only strategic changes on this thing that will not impact other things, because everything is connected. Is being process-oriented, is focusing on all the things that you can control. And if it doesn't net us the direct result, that we're still going to learn things along the route that is going to pay dividends in the future. Is that just me, the optimist mindset, always looking for the positive, spin in life? Or is that actually true? Well, it might be a bit of both. You know what I mean? Like, the lessons that we implant now are going to pay dividends down the road, but I never would have gotten there had I not put the blood, sweat, and tears to figure those things out. Right? The best case scenario is you have both. We've got a lag metric output goal that we want to hit. We have some strategy. We put in the implementation. It gets us to our goal. We have the learnings. We have the satisfaction of the output. It's when you don't have the output happen that you're trying to set out to get, that's when, you got to go in and you just focus on the process and focusing on the things that you can control. I think it's the same thing with content creation, making and shipping things, getting better at the creation process, being consistent, being disciplined, getting better at speaking in front of the camera, learning how to tell better stories. All of those things will inevitably lead you eventually to having more views or exposure, whatever you're going for. Now, that might not be, it's not going to be in the short term, things that you're going to get, but like, are those inputs and process oriented things worth the time ROI if you never get the output metrics that you're looking for? Or when you go through and you do the process based stuff, does that lead you to a different output that you weren't even considering? The constant improvement, identifying bottlenecks in your process, fixing those bottlenecks, rinse and repeating consistently on that, having an optimist, process-oriented mindset on when you're making these changes, that you're going to constantly learn things and just keep repeating that process. And that will probably build the business and the career and the skill set that you want to have. One of my favorite things to watch on YouTube are all the behind the scenes stories of these founders, oftentimes clothing companies, that are talking about building their business. They're talking about the creative side, just like vlogging, day in the life kind of thing. And I just heard the founder of Elwood, as he's getting his YouTube channel started talking about this thing. Consumers have so many options. Giving them a reason to pick you, and telling the story behind the scenes where you can buy into the brand and be a part of that, just because we're overwhelmed with all these things to choose from. And you can have a connection past the product that's actually to the people behind the business. And honestly, that's what I feel like. I've watched the Represent guys. I've watched this other one called Ecom Soup. I watched this Elwood one. I've seen a lot of these other just building of the brand, and obviously I'm biased because I'm interested in that content, and that's what I'm doing here, and I like talking about that stuff. But it's also true that the community and the connection that you get by learning about their business and their approach to things, that infuses my purchasing decisions, and I have a much more favorable opinion of the brand after I watch things like that, So I'm in LA, they're an LA based brand. I see their billboards, oh, okay, that's a cool billboard or whatever, and then you get served this video, and now you're just kind of in this ecosystem of the whole experience. And I think that you're missing out if you're not taking advantage of that type of content. Now it's hard to make when you don't necessarily have a production team to help you pull those things together. But honestly, even, these videos right here that I make, and talking about more the tactical side and sort of the trying to add value through talking about my processes and the things that we're building, for somebody out there that's building something as well and critically thinking about those things, I think that's, value adding, but also just telling the story, and you get to document the process, and in that, selfishly, as the person making the content and editing the content, you now have a much more robust understanding, to see if you can even speak or explain what you're thinking about. And if you can, that'll help you sell it, that'll help you scale it. But then it also becomes this leverage as, content, and it lives as a documentation of how you're thinking and feeling that day, right? I was watching some of the acquisition.com content from Hermosi, and you can tell a lot of this stuff is just him trying to work through it and explain it as he's thinking about his thought process or decision making. The teacher learns the most. It just adds this other element to working through the decision that you don't get unless you do this.